Oh, what's going on, everybody? We got our fresh league podcast here. I'm super excited. Maybe we'll come up with a name. We'll vote on the name for what we should call our league podcast. So we'll drop that down. Make sure to go into our league chat and check that out. How are we doing today, Vice?
What's up, everybody? Happy to be here.
Yeah, let's get into it, dude. Week 1, absolutely incredible. I don't think it exceeded all expectations for me personally. Started out with the absolute banger in the Thursday night game. Had the roller coaster that always is Sundays, and then finished it out strong with the overtime finish on Monday night with an ending that honestly I wouldn't have put any money down on that. That was insane how that finished up.
Yeah, it's great. Having football back, having the fans back creates a whole different atmosphere for the games. They're so much more exciting than those empty stadiums were last year. You can tell the players feed off the emotion. We had good games all weekend long. Thursday night came down to the last kick, and Monday night came down to the last kick. So I do also have to say the median, it's great. Keeps the teams involved. It kept me interested last night watching the game, seeing who's going to finish where. I think that was a really cool addition to the league this year.
It it was interesting to kind of see how that all played out for me personally, because I guess it was interesting when it was discussed in our league chat later about how the top 6 and the bottom 6 teams don't really affect the median, that it's only those middle 2 teams that are creating the median. So I was a little kind of taken aback by that. However, it is, like you said, even if this week didn't kind of go in everybody's favor, it was, if you won, you won. If you lost, you lost. You didn't hit the median. But I'm expecting that to change in the future, stuff like that too. So
it was close for me. If the Packers would have played that fourth quarter, I probably would have had a good chance of hitting that median and being 1-1 versus 0-2. So right now, Packers are pretty big on my shit list.
Yeah, I had to wear my my badge of shame here with my Aaron Rodgers jersey. I still love the Packers, but we're talking career worst performance for Aaron Rodgers, and everybody just looked terrible. I don't know if they got to drink some milk or like what they got to do in this upcoming week to get ready. Luckily, historically we've had some favorable games and matchups against the Detroit Lions. So hopefully going into this game, we can kind of get our heads on straight and figure that out. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I do have one thing that's worse than the Packers' performance on Sunday, and that's this right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a coconut pineapple bubbly. Somebody was giving these away at my apartment for free, and I see why they're giving away for free, because it tastes like straight garbage.
Jesus, that sounds absolutely terrible there.
But I do not recommend it.
All right, so yeah, let's get into it. I kind of wanted to start it out with our studs of the week. So we can let's get into it. Why don't you go first, Vice, over there? Why don't you list off your first stud?
Yeah, I made a little list for this. I think it's maybe a pointless list because all these guys are definitely studs. But my first guy I'm going to talk about is Nick Chubb. 21.1 fantasy points. Not only that, but the guy just looked like an absolute animal. Like the holes he had to run through with the Cleveland Browns offensive line, just their scheme in general is all geared towards the run. Big season upcoming for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I definitely his stat line was absolutely incredible, and it shows that why he was drafted so high in the first round and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited going forward to see his performance. On the opposite side of that, he wasn't used in the comeback kind of fashion that they had Kareem Hunt out there for the majority of the end of the game there. But the Browns, like you said, are kind of geared up for that ground and pound offense. So if they can kind of do what they did last year, and maintain, game management and stuff like that, and he's out there, he's going to be an absolute force.
Stud.
All right. So for my first stud, I had to go with somebody that I unfortunately had the displeasure of playing against in this league, Debo Samuel. I was incredibly impressed. He outperformed his projection by over 15 total points. He ended up going 27.4 in our league, 9 for 12, 189 yards, a touchdown, and he still had those 27 points with that fumble that they gave him. So I think that Debo Samuel this week really stepped up. I tried to think a little bit more outside the box, maybe guys that might not be your studs every single week, but guys that are going to be solid performers for you. It really looked like Debo, coming off his kind of injury-plagued year last year, is like ready to play. And I don't really know what happened with the Brandon Ayuk situation, but I think that definitely helped. And obviously Raheem Mostert going down, that's another reason that they're probably going to have to turn to the pass a little bit more. But I thought they looked phenomenal against Detroit. And, Debo is a guy I'd be looking to pick up in some of my other leagues for sure.
Well, I mean, the nice thing about the 49ers and Debo Samuel is without Mustard, they're going to find a way to get him the ball on the ground too. Like he takes handoffs, he takes those little bubble screens, those jet screens. They put the ball in his hand and put him in position to succeed. And once he's in open space, man, that guy's just an absolute beast. There was a report that came out, Ayuk kind of in the doghouse right now, so who knows what's going to happen with that. I think you're going to see more and more touches, and Debo emerge as the clear number one option on that team. So my second guy kind of cheated. I put these guys together because they kind of go hand in hand. But Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, man, just watching that game, watching those guys play. I mean, it seems like they can take it whenever they want it. I have some regrets. I probably traded the wrong receiver here in the offseason. I drafted Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, and I probably chose wrong and getting rid of Tyreek Hill. So he made me instantly regret that trade. But just watching that game, they can do whatever they want anytime they want.
Yeah, that is absolutely terrifying to see out on the field. I thought that the Browns went in with a great game plan. Like we talked about, their ground and pound, they were really successful at that. And it just shows you that it doesn't matter how much time is on the clock. It doesn't matter the situation, that they can just go down and they can score on you whenever they really feel like it. So
yeah, Mahomes, 33.3 fantasy points, 33.3 fantasy points for Mahomes, 31.6 for Tyreek Hill in our league. So pretty insane weeks from those two guys.
Yeah, I believe that was the wide receiver 2. And the only reason that he wasn't the wide receiver 1 was because of one of my other studs here, Amari Cooper, who absolutely thrived out there on Thursday night. Looked like, I know CeeDee Lamb was kind of the projected number 1 wide receiver coming into this year, with Amari Cooper starting to kind of get up there in age a little bit. People were really expecting him to kind of have a breakout season. And then, this really showed that how much trust Dak has in Amari and how much this offense really is going to rely on him. Ended with 32.4 fantasy points, coming off a 13 for 16, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. I actually have him in my other league, was the sole reason I ended up winning that other matchup. And like I said, he's going to have a great season as long as Dak stays healthy.
Yeah, I was impressed with his route running. He's always been a pretty decent route runner, but it seems like he really stepped up his game in week 1. Like he can continue to build on that and settle into those soft spots in the defense. Dak's just going to hit him all day long.
Absolutely.
And then my number 1 guy, just insane. He put the game away in the first quarter, man. Kyler Murray, 33.6 fantasy points. He beats you on the ground. He throws those balls in the air. You don't know where they're going, and all of a sudden, bomb in the end zone. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, just over and over. I don't know how good the Titans' defense actually is. I think it's one of the weaknesses of their team, but man, did he look good.
Yeah, I 100% think he was an absolute monster out there on the field. But did he end up having 5 total touchdowns, or was it just 4 through the air? Oh, nope, he did have a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, they had the rushing touchdown down by the goal line.
It's just an absolutely incredible performance by Kyler Murray once again. And I think a lot of people were projecting him to be the number 1 quarterback this year. And if this wasn't like a statement, he beat out, Patrick Mahomes by fractions of points. Dak Prescott had a great game. Tom Brady had a great game. Jared Goff had a great game. And Kyler Murray just absolutely blew these guys out of the water. as far as his performance this week. And so with my last stud, I went with the old tried and true, a guy that was projected to be the number 1 overall pick, always is every year. I went with Christian McCaffrey, and
welcome back.
Oh, yes, exactly. Coming off that injury season, I don't think anybody really knew. We all kind of expected him to be healthy when he came back, but he really showed out in a crazy way. Got all of the carries pretty much. Had 100 yards on the ground, had almost 100 yards through the air on like 9 catches, I believe. Yeah,
Insane.
9 for 9, 89 yards. The guy was the number 1 running back this week. Didn't score a touchdown. Did not even get into the end zone. I don't know many guys with that kind of talent that can be that good at football. And, you don't even have to get into the end zone to be that good. So I was very, very, very much impressed with Christian McCaffrey coming back. And he'll be a stud pretty much every week. But I just wanted to kind of, put that in the frame of reference that he didn't even score a touchdown. He scored 23 points, didn't score a touchdown. So what happens this week where he gets into the end zone once, twice, you're looking at 30, 40-point weeks. So I'm excited to kind of see where he goes in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. I suppose it's time to move on. So, with the studs happening out there, obviously there are the duds. And, I unfortunately was on the sad receiving end of one of these duds. So not only did I play against one of my studs, but I had one of my duds, and that being Derrick Henry. Put up not the stat line you expect for how good he is as a player, being the leading rusher the previous 2 years. He put up a whopping 9.2 points. 17 carries for 58 yards. It ends up being like barely over 3 yards a carry. He looked terrible. I mean, game script did not help him out because he's not your pass catching back. So you weren't really going to get that. He did end up catching 3 passes, however. But I feel like that's even on the high end for his usage. He might see like 1 or 2 a game. 3, 4 targets is kind of his max out. But yeah, he looked terrible. The Titans offense overall looked bad. I'm not worried in going into the season long outlook of things, but he was definitely a dud this week. 100%.
He's actually on my list too. He was my number 2 dud. So obviously from you and I doing our trade talks and stuff, it doesn't affect my thoughts about him. Like there's going to be better days ahead for Derrick Henry. Like that offense is going to get its mojo together. A.J. Brown had off-season surgery. Julio Jones had surgery. So it's going to take some time for that to gel a little bit. But I think when it does, I mean that he's going to have some open lanes where those receivers are going to be stretching the field. But yeah, 9.2 points out of your first, probably your highest draft pick. That's not what you're hoping for.
Yeah, I spent $53 on him in our draft, and I know he was going, as high as 2 or 3 overall in snake drafts. So obviously, you do not want that performance out of him, especially the first week. But I'm definitely not going to hit the panic button on it yet. We'll have to wait a few weeks, and if history has taught me anything, it's that Derrick Henry shines at the end of the season. I don't know what it is. The guy, the last handful of weeks every year, he comes out and he has those 200-yard games with a couple touchdowns, and he wins you fantasy championships.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pivot a little bit so I don't copy your answer, but I'll take my top draft pick then too. Like Devontae Adams, only getting 8 points for the Packers, only playing 3 quarters. I spent, that was my highest draft pick as well. I spent $46 on him, and just really disappointed with that result. I think going into the afternoon games, I was forecasted to hit like 160, feeling pretty good about myself. And then everybody in those late games for me just took a complete shit. So not too happy with that performance.
Yeah. I obviously, as a Packer fan, I'm super thrilled to kind of see that going forward. I mean, the whole Packers offense, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, I know some people were projecting Robert Tonyan to actually have a pretty decent season as a tight end coming in. Nobody performed well from the Packers. And like you said, how much you spent or how high you drafted him. I mean, Devontae Adams was your first round pick in snake drafts. Arguably could be your highest. Like you said, he was your highest in this auction draft. Could have very well been your highest in the auction draft too. So kind of seeing that all going forward. I'm again not too worried. I think this is just a little bit of acclimation fatigue, or I don't even know if that's the right term for it, but the fact that Rodgers didn't spend any time in training camp, he didn't really acclimate to what they were planning on doing this year. It kind of showed. I don't think anybody expected the Saints to look like that, and they just took us to school, unfortunately. So going forward, I don't think Devontae Adams is anything to worry about either.
Yeah, I think I typed something in a group chat about it, but I've never seen a team quit like that at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Like, I've seen in maybe 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left, they all give up and like they put the backups in. But I've never seen that before, where they're just like completely wave the white flag. All their body language looked terrible. Aaron Rodgers' body language looked terrible. He's throwing medicine balls up, like terrible passes just to nobody. I'll give you some people that outscored Aaron Rodgers this week. Fields, Mariota, Trey Lance. And those guys, they didn't even start the game.
Yeah.
Pretty rough stuff.
Absolutely. All right. So, my next stud here, is going to have to be Philip Lindsey. I think a lot of people kind of were thinking Houston offense isn't going to be that great anyway. But Mark Ingram kind of aging out of the offense, and Philip Lindsey I still thought had something left in the tank, being a little bit younger. The offense looked good and Philip Lindsey looked bad. So it was one of those, you definitely went in with high expectations thinking that he was going to be, the top performer in that offense, not knowing what Tyrod was bringing, not really thinking that Mark Ingram was going to be anything, and he very much underperformed. He's so far down on the in sleeper right now, I can't even find him. But yeah, let me just see if I can look up some of his stat lines here.
They're not good.
Philip Lindsey, yeah, he scored 8.5 points. He had 8 attempts for 25 yards, and one of those, apparently he managed to trip into the end zone. 1 target, no receptions. I mean, not at all what you're looking for. I personally have stayed away from the Houston offense in all of my drafts, including other players. But what a dud, in my opinion. That was absolutely abysmal. Looks like Pat ended up being right about the Mark Ingram thing. I think Mark Ingram had 26 carries in that game, so something that I didn't think he was ever going to get again. Like I said, being that he's kind of aging out of the NFL at this point. So, I mean, kudos on that one.
Yeah, I mean, Lindsey is somebody I targeted as a value pick late in drafts. He's on all, I had the 2 leagues. He's on both my rosters. I had some higher expectations for him. Last time he got some run in Denver, I mean, he's a top 15 running back, so I was kind of hoping that they'd utilize him in that role. Maybe some things will change as the season goes along, but he's not going to be sniffing my lineup anytime soon. One guy that I had on my dead list, Mike Evans, 3.9 fantasy points, and didn't really appear to be part of the game plan at all. It seemed like they had a lot of designs for the other receivers. Godwin as a possession receiver, Antonio Brown taking the deep shots, Gronk over the middle. Evans didn't really seem to be very involved. He was kind of Tom Brady's go-to guy last year in the red zone and picking up big yards, and I didn't really see too much of that on Thursday night in a game that was heavily featured for passing. I think he could be the odd man out more weeks than not.
Yeah, I definitely always kind of worry about Mike Evans. He's always proven me wrong in the past. Obviously, I had him last year, and he helped me overcome a crazy Alvin Kamara game in the championship match there. However, I'm just concerned overall with the target share that's going to happen in Tampa Bay. I'm not specifically concerned about Evans in this case, but I am concerned about one player every single week is going to be left out. And this week it was Evans. Next week, who knows who it could be. But I definitely agree with you that there's just too many weapons there. He didn't seem to be involved whatsoever in their offensive plan. He had a couple of these games last season, but he was still, when they got into the red zone, he was still very much a red zone presence. That's what kind of kept his fantasy season up during those games, was that he was getting those looks in the red zone. He was getting those touchdowns, and obviously not being involved at all in this game. Heading into the rest of the season, we'll have to see what their game plan is and how they're going to manage having, 4 weapons. And that's not even including, Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones coming out of the backfield. So,
yeah, I mean, Gronk seems to be taking over that role as like his look at the goal line, design plays for him, releasing off those blocks really sneakily. Like those were Evans plays last year. So far through week 1, they went to Gronk every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one more dud here, and then we can move on to our next segment here. And this one, I don't know how other people feel about this, but I have him in one of my leagues. And I wasn't expecting a breakout performance by any means, but I thought I would get a tried and true, old, reliable tight end out of this. Maybe get 7-8 points. It's pretty much all I expect, unless you get one of those, Darren Waller, Travis Kelsey kind of players. Mike Kasich, I was kind of high on this year, and he had a nice goose. He had 2 targets. So not a single reception, nothing. That's about as dud as you possibly get. He had nothing. I don't know what's going on. Move forward from this. But Kasich just very, very disappointing week 1.
We'll touch on the Dolphins later in our overreaction segment. My last guy I already talked about a little bit. It's Aaron Rodgers, man. 1.32 fantasy points, like outscored by Mariota, Lance, Fields, and just kind of looked like not his normal self. Like he looked like, I messaged Getty. I'm like, well, why does Aaron Rodgers look like a homeless person? Like he's like a homeless guy. Like it looks like he didn't spend any time in the offseason doing anything football related. Who knows what the hell is in that guy's brain? Just the overall body language of the Packers, like showing those young guys, like maybe it's all about Rodgers, not about the team. Like I feel like there's something else going on there. Whether it carries over or not, time will tell. But I was not impressed with anything I saw in the Packers.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And I think from my frame of reference, you're right. Rodgers looked bad. Not only did he look bad playing the game, but I don't know what was going on. It looked like he was like the villain in the Mighty Ducks or something. Terrible. I have never seen him look. He's a good-looking, handsome dude, and he looked like old. There was that meme of Tom Brady. How is it that this man is 7 years older than this man? Because he's 7 years older than Aaron Rodgers, and they showed them. And Tom Brady looks amazing and healthy. And, maybe it's that Florida sun that's helping him out. But
the kale diet.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers did not look good at all this week, and I hope that it's just the acclimation thing that I mentioned before, so that, moving forward, that we hopefully get something, a little bit closer to what we had last year. I think that he's been known to be a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder. And I just hope that chip isn't geared in the self-destruction, my chip is against the Packers.
Right.
Just not going to play well. And I hope it's, I'm just mad at myself right now, and I'm better than this. I'm the MVP. The stats that I was seeing coming out were worst performance from the previous MVP like ever, going back to like 1960 or something like that. It was like, it was terrible quarterback rating, just all around bad performance by Rodgers.
At least give me 4 goddamn quarters out of my fantasy players.
It just reminded me a little bit of that week. I traded Kirill last year for Aaron Rodgers, and the first week was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he absolutely shit the bed.
Yeah, I remember that.
Performance was, and it's week 1, so I just really hope that that's not the case moving forward. So, All right, so we got all of our studs, we got all of our duds out of the way. What do we got next on the agenda? Oh, owner of the week.
I
So
like this
I thought
segment.
this would be kind of a fun little segment. Stuff that, if you're making moves, you're doing trades, you're looking at the waiver wire, something that, you know, that would boost your team over the top, that gives you that extra additional edge. I'm going to be trying to look at that every week. And this week I decided that Erica was our owner of the week. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are the highest scoring person. Obviously, Phillips crushed all of his projections and scored almost 180 points. But I just thought Erica, especially with the addition of was it Brian Edwards was the wide receiver? I literally was thinking about picking him up. And then I waited, and then Erica snagged him up, and he ended up he didn't see a lot of looks until the very end of the game. But being that offense doesn't have a number one wide receiver, I mean, other than Darren Waller, uh, they're going to have to throw the ball to somebody. And it didn't really look like Ruggs was going to be the guy. I figured, after listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast and looking up some other information, I was like, maybe it is this guy. And I think he ended up with like 8 points for Erica, or almost 9 points. 10.1. 4 for 5 on 81 yards. I really like that acquisition. Obviously, I think she has potential number one overall wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, she's got a great team. Corey Davis, somebody that I wasn't sure playing for the Jets if he was going to be that great. Obviously, he had 24.2 fantasy points. He was an awesome guy. I just think that the value that Erica got for her players were phenomenal, and I think she deserves my my owner of the week.
It's funny you would pick her. Great minds must think alike because I also picked Erica as my owner of the week. Maybe for some different reasons, but Erica always drafts really well. No matter what, she comes out of the draft looking really good. She actually had one of the lower projections this week. I was kind of looking at her team. I think she was like 115 or 114 or something like that. And she just absolutely just crushed all those projections. She lost Zach Moss like 30 minutes before game time. Didn't really matter. Just put Naheem Hines in. He got 10 points. So there's always a backup plan on her team, and I think she thinks about those things when she drafts. She doesn't make a lot of moves, doesn't make a lot of trades, and she usually doesn't need to. So well done. Great first week. I'm coming for that owner of the week, though.
Congrats, Erica. All right. So with owners of the week, obviously we've been kind of doing the yin and the yang. And obviously the worst owner this week, or the person that I am going to call the league jester, because this is all somebody that we can kind of laugh at. I just think that sometimes you have terrible performances, and it's something that you just kind of got to laugh at, and that's why I'm giving this league jester award this week to the milkman himself, Mr. Patrick Howard.
Whole milk, buddy. Whole milk.
It was. I mean, I'm gonna give him the. I mean, it was a really rough go for Pat this week. He lost Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't know how many minutes into the game with that hip injury.
I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry.
Literally, the announcement was made right before we recorded this. He's moving to IR. Darren Williams, 1 carry for 4 yards. He did have a couple bright spots. I do like the Robert Woods trade that he did with Vice to get Robert Woods. I was pretty high on Robert Woods this year. Brandon Cooks, obviously, lone bright spot on that Houston offense, but Mark Ingram too. Again, 26 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. But Brandon Ayuk, goose egg. Austin Hooper,
Edwards starts ACL.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, they're not on his roster anymore. So it's just. It was a rough week for Pat, and like I said, you just kind of got to laugh about it. You got to move forward. So,
yeah, I mean, if there's one guy who can dig out, it's Pat. He's just constantly working the trade wire, constantly making moves. You just got to keep at it. Got to keep going.
Absolutely. All right. I think it's time for that segment that you were talking about earlier. Why don't you go ahead and explain it?
All right, yeah, we're gonna call this segment "Let's Overreact." I'm gonna make some crazy statements about things I noticed in week one, maybe things that happened in our chat. And I'm just curious about what your opinions are on some of these things. I'm going to throw some pretty crazy stuff at you, so I want you to be ready.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, my first one, I made a little list of these. Some of them might not be football related, but we're gonna keep it topical. So Deshawn Watson is gonna be wearing a Dolphins uniform by what week?
Oh man. So you weren't lying when you said overreactions here. I honestly, I know that the Dolphins owner came out, said he wanted him. I think it's like really bad for the locker room. You have a young emerging leader in Tua coming out. They're getting Will Fuller back this week from the suspension. I'm really high on Myles Gaskin this season, so I think it would be a bad move to do that and kind of split the franchise in that very divisive way of you're either for Deshaun or you're for Tua. And I can just see that kind of like hurting the locker room and not understanding who their true leader is. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say that it's definitely an overreaction to think that he's going to get traded. I do think until the legal stuff all works out with him, he's going to remain a nice armchair quarterback in his probably beautiful multi-million-dollar mansion still for the Houston Texans.
Week 6. That's my overreaction. Week 6. All right. So next, Aaron Rodgers is going to finish as not a quarterback 1. So in our league, what that means is he'd be 15 or lower.
Oh man, I don't agree with that. I think that is a definite overreaction. Now, do I think he's going to be, a top 5? Probably not. I think he's probably going to be out of a QB1 in most standard 12-person leagues. So I could see him finishing in about 12, 13, maybe even 14, but really lower than that. I mean, he's just been so good throughout his entire career. I can't imagine him falling lower than that.
Teddy Bridgewater is your number 14 quarterback right now, 20.5 points.
Oh my! We had a long season, and we got that extra game too. So,
staying with quarterback, I got one more quarterback question. Which current starter at quarterback is going to lose their job first?
I got to go with Andy Dalton. I know that Jimmy Garoppolo has a good, Trey Lance looked good in the small opportunities that he had in that game. However, Andy Dalton looked bad.
Really bad.
Jimmy Garoppolo still looked good, and then Trey Lance came in and also looked just as good. But Andy Dalton looked bad. When I was watching that game, I'm like, why is he still playing? And I think the only reason was because the Rams couldn't really, widen the gap more. Because I'm like, put Justin Fields in. He will give you the best opportunity to win that game because of that pass rush. Andy Dalton's not mobile. You needed that. And for whatever reason, the Bears thought otherwise. And I just think that Andy Dalton 100% week 3, they're going to give him one more week. They're going to lose. And then Justin Fields is coming in.
So this leads me to a question. So this is our first year, obviously, with Superflex. And I've played in leagues before where you get 6 points for a passing touchdown. But in our league, you only get 4 points for a passing touchdown. So that leads me to think that perhaps your Superflex position doesn't necessarily have to be a quarterback. Would you rather start like an Andy Dalton type in your Superflex, or would you rather pick somebody like a Jamar Chase or something who can get you 20, 25 points? Or does that ceiling that the quarterback give you, does it outweigh the risk reward? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think that you should, the quarterbacks are just going to have more opportunities than a wide receiver or a running back will. Other than your stud wide receivers, your stud running backs, but those are going to be in your wide receiver or running back slot. So you're better off to take the high floor of a quarterback, which unfortunately on this week in some instances was very, very low. But you just have a better opportunity to score more points with a quarterback in that super flex than not. And with our league and how deep it is, especially quarterbacks were at a premium in our draft. There's nobody out there. All of these possible rookie replacements, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, they're already taken. They're already on rosters. So what we have right now is I think we have we got Taylor Heineke available, and we got like 2 more guys that are available other than Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, I think you have to go with a quarterback in that spot just because there's just more opportunity there overall.
Fair. All right, let's move over. Let's move down to running back. So Joe Mixon finishes as the overall running back number 1.
That is going to be false. Barring injury from Christian McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey will be the number 1 overall. However, I do think that if Joe Mixon stays healthy throughout the whole season, and I'm not going to say is on pace for the same game every game from week 1, but if he is putting up semi-similar stat lines, if he's getting that much work, he will be a RB1 for sure.
Yeah, I could have had him. Devontae Adams, I could have made that move before the season started, kicking myself through 1 week, and Joe Mixon looked really good. He looked very explosive. He took the whole goddamn year off last year, so he should be nice and rested.
Yeah, and I think the Bengals offense overall just looked good. You know, like you said, Jamar Chase. I wasn't expecting much from Joe Burrow coming off the double ligament tear in his knee. So to see him perform as well as he did, and to see how comfortable that offense looked, I'm very impressed, and I'm actually pretty excited to see what happens there with the Bengals and in that division.
All right, Grills guy, Tyson Williams, currently sitting at the running back number 9, finishes as a running back 1 this year.
I don't think that's possible. I do think that he played very well, given the opportunity that he had. I think he did everything to kind of secure the number 1 role. However, with the Ravens, they're going to be running back by committee. I mean, Latavius Murray had plenty of runs in there, got a goal line touch, you know. Lamar Jackson is going to take away carries from you. Who knows what happens with, Le'Veon Bell if he comes back and takes some sort of carries away too. I just think there's too many people in that offense where he will have that opportunity to finish as the number 1 running back. 2 years ago, I think 2019, Mark Ingram did finish as the RB11 or something like that.
Yeah,
So it is possible, but I just don't see that happening with Tyson. Not yet.
All right. So this one's going to be a little bit non-football related. So Justin will go on as many, if not more, dates than Pat throughout the fantasy football season.
Yes, I love that question. I have no idea, but I will say that I feel like that's not an overreaction to say. I just think that Justin puts himself out there in those situations a little bit more. Seems to be a little bit more social. And not that Pat's not social, but I just that puts me in a tough spot. But I gotta go with my boy Justin is gonna have more dates than Pat. Mark that down.
All right. So moving back to wide receiver now. So my boy Antonio Brown finishes as a top 10 wide receiver this year.
I am gonna say no. I can't see it. I mean, it's very possible, but again, with all of those weapons, I just think eventually I can't see that happening to be a top 10. Top 20 for sure. But yeah, top 10, man, that's tough. That means
he's currently sitting at number 8.
I think with all the weapons that they have, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for that to happen.
Okay. And how about Amari Cooper? Amari Cooper finishes as the wide receiver 1.
As a wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 1?
The wide receiver 1.
Nah, I can't say yes. I got to say no. I just think that there's going to be other more consistent wide receivers out there. But then again, Dallas looked really good on offense. That could very well happen. It just kind of depends on how much more CD develops. If he's going to take more of target share volume away from Amari Cooper, and also like Zeke. He could have very well been a dud this week for us, but I opted to not do that, but he played like not great.
60 pass attempts.
Yeah, but so if we see Zeke come around in any kind of capacity and start to have a more balanced offense, the volume for passing isn't going to be there as much. So I don't think Amari Cooper will be the wide receiver one.
Fair. All right, last wide receiver question. Some of our heroes from the past, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, these guys are no longer elite receiving options.
I would say yes, that's true. I think Mike Evans probably carries the largest upside to all of those wide receivers, just being in that offense, in that Bruce Arians offense, versus Robert. I feel like their talent level is all very similar at this point in their careers.
Right.
But the offenses just aren't there, at least from what I've seen, other than Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay Bruce Arians offense. I think the Rams offense has the potential to get there, but the Washington football team offense is definitely not. But they are very high value wide receiver twos with wide receiver one upside on a weekly basis. I
kind of grouped all those guys together just from similar talent perspective. You could probably put Tyler Boyd in that category too. Guys who have historically been top 15 receivers in our league. Really didn't look like they were the main focus in any of their game plans this week. It has a little concern for me that there's just other options on those teams. Maybe the team's trying to scheme and do some other things. I could see some of those guys kind of being left by the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely potential for all of them to have their really good games. I look at sorry, something was going on inside my house. But yeah, so I definitely think that there's potential going forward, but I am interested to see, I think mainly for Robert Woods. He finished the wide receiver 13 last year.
Right.
But Cooper Kupp looked like he was going to take the vast majority. But again, it just remains to be seen what happens, because I remember last year they kind of would switch off every other game. It would be a Cooper Kupp game, or it would be a Robert Woods game, and then it would kind of go back and forth until the very end of the year, where Robert Woods really kind of took over that number one role. But with the new quarterback, who knows how that's going to play out and how that target share is going to go.
I'm definitely overreacting to it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Okay, non-football related question.
All right.
Candyman is and will always be trash.
Not an overreaction. I never liked Candyman.
Thank you.
So dumb. It was so dumb. People that want to go see the new Candyman are just literally flushing their money down the toilet, looking at you, Dave. I just there's zero reason to go see that movie. I actually have a friend that has a second Instagram account where she reviews horror movies. She gave it 0 stars. It's trash. The franchise was trash back in the day. And it's just not a good one. Not an overreaction at all.
That movie has always sucked. What a stupid concept. You say the guy's name 5 times and he comes and kills you. What a dumbass concept for a movie.
What a terrible name for him. Candyman? What is he gonna shoot Skittles out his ass or something? Come on, dude. That's so stupid.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad we agree on that.
Yes.
Okay, my last football overreaction from week 1. There will be more than 3 usable tight ends this season in fantasy.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go not an overreaction. I'm gonna say that there won't be a lot more, but outside of the 3, I could see a handful of them being worthwhile on a every week basis. Versus streaming tight ends, which a lot of people end up doing, just playing it by matchup. My boy Eric Ebron, I've had him in at least one league for every year. thinking that he was going to break out. It just never had happened. But there are some younger people. I don't know what happened with Kasich this week, but like I said, I thought he might be one to kind of break out this year. And Robert Tonyan, another one, had a dud week. But I definitely could see more tight ends having better, more consistent weeks going forward.
Yeah, there's a couple teams this week where the tight end was a big part of the game plan. Hawkinson was one. Logan Thomas was one. Kyle Pitts was one. He didn't really have the stats to put up, but he still got 8 targets, led the team. So he's clearly, he's part of that offense. He's lining up as a wide receiver. You got Mark Andrews. So there's definitely some more talent this year than there has been in the past. Maybe not giving such a competitive advantage to those guys who drafted Kelsey and Kittle and Waller. I think some of the other guys are catching up to the pack a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's definitely going to be more opportunities. I even like, Gerald Everett.
Everett's another one.
And honestly, we'll see what happens. But if Dalton Schultz can emerge on the Cowboys, they really look like they're going to be splitting the workload pretty consistently. But if they can kind of shift that to one guy, I can definitely see that being a successful thing too. He was fine last year when he played. And it was very up and down, but it's just a lot of consistency issues, and I definitely could see a lot of teams kind of ironing that out this season. So
cool. All right, so Infinity War is the best Marvel movie of them all.
So I got to ask one question on top of that before I answer this. Do you think Into the Spider-Verse is MCU, or would you say that's separate?
It should be part of MCU.
Okay, then I would say Spider-Verse number 1, Infinity War very close second.
Watched it again this morning. I've seen that movie a goddamn 1,000 times. I love it. Love every second of it.
It's better than Endgame, 100%.
Cool. So Matt Nagy will be the first NFL coach fired this year.
Yes, not an overreaction. There's 2 parts to this, right? There's one, if they continue the Andy Dalton thing and they keep losing, he will 100% get fired. If he makes the decision for Justin Fields to come in sooner rather than later, and they kind of start to turn their season around a little bit, because even if they continue to lose a little bit with Justin Fields, it's going to be looked at, this is not Nagy's fault. It's Justin Fields' fault. He's not living up to the expectation that they had when they drafted him. So he'll get away with losing with Justin Fields more than he will with Andy Dalton. So if they make the move early, he'll keep his job. If they don't and they stick with Dalton longer, he will lose his job. 100%.
He's gonna be cutting limes with me at Chipotle.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's so predictable and conservative. I mean, by halfway through the first quarter of Sunday night, I could call his plays, like running the ball every play on first down. Like, switch it up, man. Do something. You got Allen Robinson, you got Mooney. Like, come on, man.
There were no downfield throws. Like, they didn't move the ball down the field at all. Like, was very shocked. That being said, David Montgomery looked, pretty damn good.
Great game. So that's it. Those are all my overreaction questions from week 1.
All right. Well, yeah. I like that segment. We're gonna have to do that consistently. There, I love the overreaction segment. So last segment I got here before we can get into something really quick with I just want to maybe do a quick league matchup preview for this upcoming week. I want to talk about power rankings, and I know it's kind of weird to talk about power rankings after week 1. Especially in fantasy football, where the stats aren't quite the same as that you can look at. The metrics aren't going to be quite the same that you can look at for an NFL team. But kind of going down the line, it goes pretty close with points being scored. But I had a couple interchanges of the power rankings just based overall on how I feel like their team will do with the longevity of the season. So obviously, Phillips, at the top, absolutely deserves that at the top. And then, I got to go with Erica. Erica was next. Another, like I said, she was the owner of the week this week for me. And, I just can't see her team really losing that many games this year because she just does really great in her drafts and everything. Then Nick, followed by Don, followed by Jackie, then Spitzer, Briggs, Vice, Justin, Kirill. I think those are all very interchangeable there in the 7 through 10 spot right now. You all had decent performances. You all were close to the league median, but obviously played against one of those top teams. So you didn't get the win in either capacity, unfortunately. So I think there's a lot of big intermixing in the middle here. And then at the bottom of the trash heap here would be myself, followed by Dave, followed by Mike, followed by Pat, obviously with the lowest scoring team this week. And Mike obviously almost had the lowest scoring team. I mean, he looked like he was doing everything to make sure he was the lowest scoring team this week. So that's kind of the sad trombone of it all. So I don't know what you were thinking. I'm assuming we got probably pretty similar power rankings there.
Yeah, I mean, I would maybe move Don up a little bit. His team's very solid. Right now, he's currently sitting in 4th place. He had a blowout victory, even with Aaron Jones only getting 3 points. That's not something that's going to happen every week. He's got 2 awesome quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. That's going to be a pretty consistent theme, I think, when you look at the teams who are on top, is their consistent quarterback play. He did lose Judy, which kind of sucks. He doesn't really have. He's got Mike Williams he can replace him with, so that's fine. The other riser on there is Spitzer, sitting at number 6. I mean, he's got Brady and he's got Kyler Murray again, so those guys are going to keep him in every matchup every single week, no matter what. He's going to have a shot to win. From any of the 0-2 teams, any risers that I see. Kirill's got some insane talent on his team. If he get Barkley and Elliott can get their shit together, he's somebody you can move up. And Getty's got lots of talent on his team too. Michael does. He's got, obviously Aaron Rodgers has a stink bomb. But he's got Jonathan Taylor. He's got Harris from the Steelers, Keenan Allen. So lots of star power on those teams too that they could quickly move up the rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see the Mike thing for sure. One of the reasons why I put him low as I did, obviously because of the stink bomb that Rodgers had, but also like even if Rodgers performs well, he still had a lot more bad players that happened there. Because let's just say Rodgers gets 20 points, which could be high, could be low for Rodgers this year. We don't really know. That still puts him at less than 100 points. So he had some more problems there. And Najee Harris, he's still a rookie, unproven rookie. I know that he's going to get the bulk of the work, but who knows what that Steelers offense is going to really look like. He's just got a lot of question marks for me personally. Zach Wilson looked good. But is Zach Wilson really going to be putting up 20-point performances every week? Remains to be seen, obviously. He does have Justin Fields, so if they do get that, he has potential to get in there. I do like the Gio Bernard pickup. I don't think he's going to be anything crazy, but could be a random substitution flex play. I just think he's really reliable. He's like the James White on for Brady now, where he's going to be there in those passing situations versus Rojo, who was in the doghouse this past week for fumbling, and Leonard Fournette can't catch a ball to save his life. So
I have been sneakily trying to pick Bernard off his team all week long. So
yeah, it's not a bad thing to kind of go after. So, but yeah, that I think we had pretty similar. But yeah, I definitely think that I wanted to put Don higher. And yeah, his team, I looked at it when I was going up against it this week, and I said, okay, I think I have a chance at winning, but the reason there was such a disparity was Travis Kelsey. I think that really, really rounds out his lineup like unbelievably well. So I could definitely see him moving up. Nick has got some really solid pieces though too. So it's just all those people at the top right now. I could definitely see Phillips sliding a little bit further down. Obviously everybody hit, but again, is Amari Cooper going to be the number 1 overall this year? There's some question marks. And when you score 180 points, there's not really a whole lot of room to continue to improve on. So he will slide down a little bit in these next couple weeks would be my guess. We'll see though. We'll see.
Yeah. If there's one hole I could pick in a 170 point scoring team, it's that he doesn't have great quarterback play. Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Tyrod Taylor are all going to be very inconsistent. But everything else in the middle of his lineup is just so solid. Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, he's got two top, maybe three running backs before it's all said and done. Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, those guys are like the number 2 top 5 receivers. Darren Waller, top 3 tight end. So his lineup is solid besides the quarterbacks. And let's not sleep on Jackie either.
Yeah,
Jackie's got a great lineup as well. And she's got the great quarterback play, Tannehill, Jameis Winston. If he continues to look like what he did week 1, she's going to be contending for the championship this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Really like the Austin Eckler pick on her team. I was really high on Austin Eckler. I have him in a couple of my other leagues. So, yeah, I wholly agree with you on that. Jackie could definitely be moving herself up in those power rankings. She's definitely got the talent all across the board. So, all right. So I feel like we should kind of wrap this up here. And let's just I'm looking at this coming week. I wanted to kind of talk about some matchups here. It looks like we should have another really fun-filled lineup of matchups here. We got the Getty Bowl, as I'm gonna call it, between Dave and Mike here, leading the top on my screen. So that should be pretty interesting to see what happens there. Being as they were both lower scoring teams this week, it'll just be kind of fun to see the brothers go at it. Probably gonna have a lot of shit talk happening in the league throughout the week, leading up. And then honestly, I'm really excited to see the Spitzer match with Phillips. I think they both have, like you said, really strong lineups. Phillips obviously coming off an 180 point week. And the Spice Melange in Kyle Spitzer there. Got good old Tom Brady. I tried to get him off Tom Brady. He wanted an absurd amount of things for him. I couldn't make that happen. But rightfully so. He did put up quite a few points, and those quarterbacks are really going to keep him into the games.
All right, so Getty Bowl, who you got? You got David or Michael?
I'm going to go with Mike right now at this point in time. Mainly because I think they're honestly pretty close. I just don't think Rodgers is going to play as bad as he did last week. And I just like his running backs a little bit more than Dave's running backs. I think those are kind of the clear picks. Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor versus Mike Davis and David Johnson. I mean, David Johnson did have 10 points, but he had 3 attempts.
Yeah, David had a rough go. He lost Mustard for the season. That just came out today. Doesn't have a whole lot of running back depth there, so maybe it looks like he's got 3 of my heroes of yesteryear, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown. So maybe look to move one of those guys for a running back piece or something like that. To try to get him back up towards the matchup. I think right now Michael's projected at 129. David's at 112, so he's definitely got some gaps to make up there. So what about Spitzer's matchup, Spitzer and Phillips?
Yeah, like I said, I just really like that matchup just because, Kyler Murray and Tom Brady are really they're the staples of his team. Plus the Devonta Smith pick from Spitzer it really seems to be like he's that dude on Philadelphia. So I really like that. And I'm very high on Antonio Gibson. He got all of the work, 20 attempts, he had 90 yards, and he had 5 targets. So he's still getting a lot of those targets. He only had 3 receptions out of those 5, but he is getting all of the work. And I like to see those, at the running back level in a position that generally now is a split backfield on almost every team. To see somebody get 20 to 30 carries, that's the dude. And so that's going to be really cool. And on the other side, I mean, Phillips got Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook. Those are 2 top 5 running backs this year, potentially. Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett. I just feel like, Darren Waller, he's just got a really well-rounded thing. The thing with Spitzer too is he put up all those points. He had Mike Kasich, a goose. So it's just, I think there's potential in this to be easily the highest scoring between the two. And so this will actually be I think this will be a really interesting matchup to see kind of that median battle too. So if they both end up being really high, at least one of these two teams will probably get another win in the median category. And it'll be the first, even though it's only week 2, it'll be the first time that we've seen that happen. Everybody that won also beat the median, and everybody that lost didn't beat the median. So
yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Phillips in this matchup. Spitzer's biggest question right now is James Robinson. I don't know what the hell they're doing down there in Jacksonville. Carlos Hyde out-touched him. So until we see something more that he's going to be more involved in the game plan, I feel like that's a big hole in his lineup, and that's going to give Phillips that advantage with Chubb and Delvin Cook getting all those carries. So who you got for – I got Kirill going against Don. Kirill projected at 125, Don projected at 122.
Well, Don's projected 122 now only because he still has Jerry Jeudy in his lineup.
Yep.
But I mean, going forward, I got to give it to Don. He's just got a really dominant team, and like I said, Travis Kelsey in a position that normally is on average at least 10 to 12 points lower. You're projected almost 19 points with Travis Kelsey. I think that's a huge difference maker. In the matchup right there. Plus the quarterback play. Teddy and Sam Darnold, I don't think they're bad by any means, but they're definitely not Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen.
All right, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Don on that one. Probably slide Mike Williams into that spot. So next on my list, I got CCAT versus Justin. Justin's 129.6 to Nick's 121.45 projection right now.
Yeah, this will actually be another really interesting one. What happens here? I like, if Joe Mixon continues to be as good as he was, that's going to be a huge benefit to Nick's team. But I also can't see Chris Carson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire performing as badly as they did in week 1. I don't think neither of them performed. What did they score? Yeah, 8.7 they combined for 20 points. I can't imagine, that's going to be at least another 10-point thing. If Dak plays again, Dak and Lamar, I got to go with Justin on this one. I just think he's got a more well-rounded team. Nick has a couple dart throws out there, and if they obviously perform well, I think there's potential that he wins, but Justin just has a more solid overall lineup.
He does have Will Fuller coming off suspension, so he's somebody he could slide into that spot for Latavius Murray. I'm going to go with Nick on this one.
All right, why don't we talk about my matchup here? I'll ask you who you think between me and Briggs right now. It's a pretty close projection here. But what are your thoughts on me and Briggs matchup?
All right. So we got Return of the King versus Bob Jube, Doug Dimmadome. Right now, Briggs is projected at 127. You're projected at 120.4. Lots of question marks, I think, on both sides. Can Derrick Henry bounce back? Seattle's green right now in a matchup, but I don't necessarily think that that's a great running back matchup. Nor will it be part of the game plan. Seattle's probably going to try to put up a lot of points again, just like the Cardinals did. So I think that's kind of a question mark. Is Derrick Henry going to come out to play? And then on Briggs' side is can he get a performance like that out of Goff on a consistent basis? I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case every week. I mean, Goff was sitting on like 4 points for like 3/4 of that game, and then in the fourth quarter he scored like 25 points. So I don't think you're gonna get that every week out of him. And Trevor Lawrence, same kind of game script where they got their asses kicked the entire game. Fourth quarter comes around, those guys are just hucking the ball over the field, raising their stats. I don't necessarily think that happens every week. So I think those are his big question marks. Is he going to get consistent quarterback play out of those two? I'm going to give the matchup to you. I'm going to pick you. I'm going to pick you to overcome the projection. You're welcome. You're welcome. Why don't you talk about my matchup versus Erica? I'm projected at 133. She's projected at 123.
Yeah. Should be another really fun matchup, I think, going forward here. Is Devontae going to bounce back? I project that he will. He's playing against Detroit. Obviously, they're green on our matchup screen here, but on top of that, we're talking about one of the most dominant wide receivers in the league. I can't imagine him having 2 dud weeks in a row like that. But the big question here is, are how are you going to overcome Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey? I know that you're projected, but Christian McCaffrey, again, coming off a week where he scored 20 plus points and didn't even get in the end zone. I can't imagine him not getting into the end zone again. He does have a tough matchup in New Orleans. They have a pretty strong run defense, but it's Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't really matter who he plays against. He's going to get his. Patrick Mahomes just makes every team look silly. So those are like the big, those guys are more than likely going to hit their projections, probably get higher than their projections. Again, this is going to be a really close one. But I think the biggest, I can't believe Andy Dalton is projected 17 points. That is blowing me away. I don't know what's going on with that. But I'm going to give you the slight edge because I like your quarterbacks overall. And again, I think that Andy Dalton scored 5 points this last week. Do I think he'll get more than that? Yeah, probably. But the way he looked, he looked slow. He looked bad. He looked inaccurate. They couldn't move the ball down the field. So I got to go with, Baker looked solid, and he gets the Houston matchup, who, we didn't think they were going to be as good as they were, but I think the Browns, are a much more talented team. They should be able to pretty much do what they want with the Houston Texans. That Kyle Pitts is probably going to do a little bit better the more acclimated he gets into that offense. I just think you got the team to take her down this week.
Andy Dalton revenge game versus Cincinnati.
Yeah, I should have thought about that and maybe in the projection, but I do think that you got a slight edge here, just a ever so slight edge.
All right, so we got one more matchup to talk about. We got Jackie versus the Milkman, whole milk himself. Jackie currently projected at 123. Milkman projected at 75.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, Trey Sermon is going to get, I think, a little bit more run. I don't know why was he out? It was just that he was. Did they ever come out and say why he was inactive for game one? I don't really know.
I read a story that him and Ayuk broke curfew. They weren't in time the night before. So they both were punished on game day for that.
Okay. So, but I do think Trey Sermon's going to get more of a run. Mark Ingram has a tough matchup, but if he gets the same workload, that's going to be really solid. He obviously just has some gaps right now. He doesn't have a tight end starting. He doesn't have a second flex starting. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when he fills that in. But I am imagining Ayuk. I'm imagining Trey Sermon both being in his lineup. Joe Burrow, I thought looked great. I think that's solid. But obviously, we talked about Jackie having one of the best teams. Austin Eckler, Ryan Tannehill, Stephon Diggs. Gronk had 25 points. So I got to give it to her. I just don't see what Pat can do to overcome the deficit that he's going to be in because of the talent on Jackie's team.
Yeah, he's up against it right now with the injuries to his team, losing Gus Edwards, losing Ryan Fitzpatrick. There is one quarterback available on the waiver wire, but it's going to be kind of hard to get that quarterback when you traded away all your fab before the season started.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, he dug himself a hole here. Let's see. I know that Pat is always looking, always reading, researching, trying to figure out, trends and everything that's going on. So if there is a guy that can get himself out of the situation, it's Pat. But it's going to be tough. He dug himself a pretty deep hole. It's going to be tough to get out of it. So
I'm going to go Jackie as well.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I think we did solid here. A little over an hour. I think we nailed it. Good luck to everybody this week. Good luck to you, Vice, obviously. And, we'll be back next week, hopefully, right?
Yeah, it was a blast. I had a good time.
All right, man. You have a good one. All right. See you guys next week.